Okay, so today I wanted to discuss my unit plan topic, which is World War II. More specifically, I wanted to address some of the specific factors that led to America entering World War II. The first bit of congressional legislature that addressed the topic of a European war was the Neutrality Acts. It was passed by Congress in 1939 as an attempt to establish a permanent foreign policy of non-intervention in any future European war. And of course, as we all know, European war did break out soon after. That came in the form of Hitler's invasion of Poland in September of 1939, a few months after the Neutrality Acts passed. Because of Hitler's invasion of Poland and his sudden show of effective aggression, as well as his ambition to expand his empire, Britain and France declared war on Germany immediately after that invasion. So, following the declaration of war, FDR reassured Americans that the U.S. would remain neutral towards any European war, which is the previous policy, but that the nation becomes politically divided between interventionists and non-interventionists. The interventionists were Americans that recognized the goal of Nazi Germany to create a strong and growing European empire through the assimilation, usually the military assimilation of neighboring countries. So the interventionists recognize that the German ideas of expansion in Europe are not compatible with our interests and the interest of our allies. Also amongst the interventionists was a fear of a German attack on American soil, which is confirmed when Germany steamrolls American ally France in 1940. And that leaves the sole champion of democracy, as we call them, the UK, to stem the tide of the Nazi Empire, which they simply didn't have the supplies to do. So these type of international events fed the fire that the interventionists had in order to start a war, or to start American war effort in World War II. So recognizing this, FDR makes a concession in early 1941 in the Neutrality Acts, and that's in the form of the Lend-Lease Act, which was passed. It allowed him to designate any war material to a nation that he deemed would contribute positively to an American defense, like a secure America. So this allowed him to effectively give war material to the United Kingdom, which was the sole ally at the time fighting the Nazis. So the tipping point in the opinions of Americans on intervening in World War II was, of course, Pearl Harbor, the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941. As a bit of context of what motivated that attack, the growing Japanese Empire began the invasion of the East Indies and Malaya, which was a series of islands in the Pacific. Their intent through those invasions, subsequent military invasions of the Pacific Islands, was to grab more resources for their war machine, whether that's in the form of oil, etc., etc. In response to this encroachment into the Pacific, FDR moved the bulk of the U.S. Navy warships from a base in San Diego, California, to a new location in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. The Japanese see this move by FDR, and they began to anticipate that with their ambitions of expanding further into the Pacific, and FDR's ambition to attempt to stop that advance and to stop the growth of the Japanese Empire closer to America, Japan basically recognizes that war with America, it becomes inevitable, pretty much. So in order to attempt to cripple the American Navy preemptively, they attacked Pearl Harbor in a surprise attack on December 7th, 1941. And that attack was devastating, as we all know, and it killed over 2,000 Americans. So because of the attack, because of the sudden upturn of public opinion towards fighting a war, now with Japan, in retaliation, FDR the following day declares war on Japan. And after the declaration of war, Japan's new allies, Germany and Italy, it also declared war on the U.S. And that effectively was the cause of America entering the war. So I hope these facts help you understand greater how we entered the war, and that's all I have to say. Thanks.